Hi, Bill Miller here. Video number 4 in my journey through conquering emotional abuse and verbal abuse. Little recap, I discovered I was an emotional abuser a little over a month ago, maybe a month and a week or two now. One of the hardest realizations of my life, I realized that all of the excuses I've been making for pretty much my whole life about it being other people that upset me, it's their fault if they wouldn't do this or they wouldn't do that. I wouldn't get so mad, I wouldn't have to yell or cuss or raise my voice or insult or make them feel bad or beat them down emotionally. But it was always someone else's fault until one day I lost my wife about 2 weeks ago. And now I realize it's not anyone else's fault but mine. I know there are a lot of you out there, a lot of people out there, millions of us that have experienced this. Some of us live it every day. Some of us, maybe it only comes up from time to time. For me, it was an everyday thing, pretty much. Now that I've gone through the process a little bit, what I realized is because I think sometimes you make excuses a little bit because there are plenty of people in my life that I didn't abuse emotionally or verbally or anything. And what I think happens is maybe those people didn't quite get inside my heart enough for me to start worrying about it, because I think, using my wife as an example, she's honestly the most amazing person I've ever met. Most people would, I don't know how you wouldn't agree. She literally is just amazing. She's brilliant, beautiful, funny, silly, goofy, kind, spiritual, very loyal, trustworthy, honorable. She's just everything you could ever dream of in a partner, in a woman, in a friend, in a wife. And the irony is like I beat her down. I literally insulted her more than I complimented her. And when I say it out loud, and now that I'm where I'm at in life, it's such a pathetic excuse of a human being. But what I feel like happens is you get to a point where you love them so much that you realize how badly they can hurt you. You realize dang, this person is amazing. If she left me, if she cheated on me, if she decided I wasn't the one for her, I would be mortified. I'd be devastated. So I think you just start pushing them away. I think that's what I do anyway, or I did anyway. Start pushing her away because I don't want her to know how much I love her. I don't want her to know how much I need her, how badly she could devastate me and my life and my whole being. So I push her away. So I make her feel unloved. I make her feel like, I could do with or without our relationship, our marriage. I can move on and be fine tomorrow if she didn't, exist in my life. And man, I regret that. I want nothing more than today to be able to tell her how unbelievably beautiful and amazing she is, how much she means to me, how scared I was to lose her, how much I didn't feel like I deserved her. And then, those sound like excuses for me to I don't know, but treat her the way I did. I'm not trying to make an excuse. You don't know how to handle such a love. Maybe, I've never felt it. I had good parents. My dad was a traditional dad. My mom was, raised 7 kids, went through the kidnapping like we talked about earlier, went through a divorce. My mom had a pretty rough go. I don't know how easy I made it on her. I was quite the child. But overall, I think I had a good mom, a very good mom. My dad and I butt heads. He kicked me out when I was in 8th grade, kicked me out of the house, was sending me to military school as a 12-year-old boy. Probably because my dad didn't understand me. I was lashing out after my sister's kidnapping, and I was getting in trouble, stealing things, fighting, rebelling, drinking. I was doing everything, and my dad, he's not going to sit down and have a conversation with me. He's going to discipline me, or if I don't do it his way, he's going to, kick me out of the house, and which that's where it went. But anyway, that was part of my healing, is forgiving my dad. Also, but I don't know how to, because I feel like if someone would have told me what I was doing before I realized what I was doing, before I realized myself what I was doing, before I lost my wife. I mean, in fairness, I almost lost her a month ago, and it changed me, and that's when I realized this, and I've been getting better ever since. But 2 weeks ago, I relapsed. I got drunk, and I went back to my old abusive ways, and that was it. That was just kind of the last straw, the straw that broke the camel's back. And so even though I almost lost her, she gave me another chance. Then I was making strides to get better, and things actually were feeling healthy, pretty healthy between us. In just a short 2-week period, things were changing a lot for us. I had a lot of hope, and then I just relaxed. Went and got sushi, drank some sake, and then just, an alcohol brain does not function properly. It doesn't function the same as a regular, like when you're sober. And so I allowed myself to do that, and I lost her. I lost my wife. And in turn, her two kids, and our beautiful family of 8 that we had is gone, because I wasn't smart enough to realize what I was doing beforehand. And anyone that watches these, that's all I can hope, is that you just don't let it get to that point before you look at yourself in the mirror and have a real talk and say, am I doing that to my wife? Am I doing that to my husband, my loved one? There are a lot of qualified, I don't know, there are a lot of different ways that you can abuse. Out of this book that I'm reading, she lists about 20 or 25. I really only fall under about 5 out of the 25, but that's all you need. Like, to be an abuser, insulting your wife all the time and belittling her is a horrible, horrible thing to do. There are a lot of things I didn't do, but there are about 4 or 5 of them I did. And I would just strongly encourage anyone to just reflect on yourself. If your relationship isn't going the greatest, if you've been told that you're abusive, if you find yourself getting angry over things that really shouldn't anger you, if your wife does things or whatever that you might not understand or whatever, and you find yourself getting mad at her and criticizing her, stop for a minute and say, I think there's a better way for me to get my message across, for me to get my point across, there's a lot better way to do this than what I'm doing. And you don't want to lose her. You don't want to lose your partner over your abuse, over your issues, that probably came up at a much earlier time in your life that kind of made you the way you are. But it certainly wasn't her that made you the way you are. I know it wasn't my wife that made me the way I was, and so I shouldn't have taken it out on her. I should have fixed myself many, many years ago, but I didn't. So one of the first things that I did, that I kind of learned how to do, is a very common characteristic or trait that abusers have, is kind of like a narcissistic trait. Like, we think we're always right, or we think our way is always the best, and we always think about how things affect us or feel to us, or inconvenience us, but we don't think about how it feels on the other side, how put ourselves in their shoes. I know that absolutely suits or fit me to a T. Always, like I've talked about before, she might not be having the greatest day, and instead of me being a good husband and helping her, loving her more, buying her flowers, cooking her dinner, rubbing her feet, I would criticize her, tell her to snap out of it. You're really inconveniencing me by having a bad day. So, you know what I mean? Just snap out of it. I don't know what your problem is. Like, whatever, get over it. Just stupid, just inconsiderate. But that's like a narcissist. It's a narcissistic trait anyway. I don't believe myself to be a narcissist. I suppose no one that is does. I know for sure I'm not now. I could see how I had some characteristics that were very much so before. But one of the first things that you have to do in order to get better, number one, admit that you're an abuser. At least admit that you have, from time to time you do abuse. You don't always have to be an abuser all the time, but you abuse one time a year, and it might take a while for her to get trust back, for her to get her confidence back, her self-esteem. You insult her, you tell her, her butt's getting big, or whatever, some insult, it's going to stay with them for a long time. You make them feel unloved. You give them a reason to not trust you. Those stay with people for a long time. You can be amazing for 3 months, 6 months, and then you give them a reason to not trust you. You lie to them, you hide something, hide things from them or whatever, or you hurt them. And for the next 6 months, they're going to struggle with it. It's going to affect them. And you can be great for the next 6 months, but they can still have that inside them where they're wondering, questioning themselves, questioning you. But you have to at least admit that you're an abuser in order to start healing. And then the next thing you do is you humble yourself. You don't put yourself above them or anyone else. You are. I'll say it. I don't know, whatever, because I'm not afraid to be religious. You're God's child. I'm God's child. My wife is God's child. We're all loved exactly the same by Him. None of us are above each other or below each other. We're just not. I might be brilliant at math, and then I try to sing and I'm the worst singer in the world. Everyone has their positives, their negatives, their gifts, their talents, their weaknesses. None of us are above anyone else. So don't act like it. Just, there's nothing more endearing as someone that's able to admit that they're not perfect, but they're trying. None of us are really perfect at anything, but if we keep trying, at least there's that. And trying is a different thing. This is something that I learned, in terms of humbling yourself. In the business world, trying sometimes means working your ass off. It means outworking everyone. Golfing with your buddies, or bowling, or playing basketball, or whatever. Trying is winning. Like, if you're not winning, you need to try harder. And work, work extra hours, come in on work overtime, come in on the weekends and work, try to get ahead, try to beat everyone else on the crew, so you get promoted, so you get a raise, so you become the boss, whatever it is. that's how I also worked my relationships. Like my relationship with my wife, and she told me this all the time when I didn't believe her. It's not a competition. The only competition in a relationship should be who can be nicer than the other, who can treat the other one better, like who can treat the other best. Like there's a competition for you that's going to, help a relationship thrive. Not I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, I can make more money than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm faster. None of that stuff matters in a relationship. Who can be nicer? Who can be the most understanding? Who can be the most loving, empathetic, caring, sweet? Like you excel at those things, and now you have a marriage. Now you have a relationship. But don't compete. It's not a competition in any other way. And like when you're arrogant, when you're narcissistic, you always want to win. You always have to win. And the only way you can get better is to humble yourself. As far as relationships, the only way you can get past this, acknowledge you have it, acknowledge it's in you to be an abuser. Maybe find, the next step would be find out why, because it does help to know how far it goes back. Because when you realize, it started when this happened, well, then you can maybe start working on forgiving that occurrence. My sister's kidnapping was a gigantic one for me. Well, I wrote my sister a long, long letter, and I asked her permission to move past, to stop being so angry about her kidnapping, to turn it over to God and understand that he had a plan somehow, whether it makes any sense to me or not. I'm not smart enough to know, but I asked her if I could not let it ruin another day of my life. And instead of being mad about what she went through, start looking forward to seeing her in heaven, and just know that it'll all make sense one day when I get up there and I give her the biggest hug ever. And that helped me forgive. That helped me put that in the past. Because, I guarantee you my sister wouldn't want me to carry that anger with me for the rest of my life, and to treat people poorly because of something that happened to her that none of us had any control over. Yet I've let it control me my whole life and hurt others. Whoever took her also caused me to be abusive to many people in my life. So I gave them that power. And I just, I wrote my sister that letter and asked her permission to just kind of, I'll never forget it, but I have to move past it and just look forward to seeing her in heaven and not look back anymore, and just know that it was something that God had in mind, and leave it at that. And it, before when I was an arrogant me, I wanted to kick ass. I wanted to, I wanted answers. I wanted to kill, kick ass, whatever. But after I humbled myself, I just, it helps to just say, I didn't have any part of it. I didn't cause it. I don't understand it. I just have to know that I'm just a normal person, that, and just turn it over to God, that He had a plan somehow, some way that eventually makes sense, or would make sense, or whatever. And that's helped me. That's helped me forgive some of that. So that's kind of a off on a tangent, but it does help. There's when you look back at when you started your abuse, and maybe forgive that reason. so you can maybe just start looking forward and not letting what happened as a child dictate how you act and how you treat people today. Yeah, so that's kind of that's it for today. I'm trying not to ramble. We're at 20 minutes now. Just want to talk about that a little bit. After acknowledging that you're an abuser, maybe looking back and trying to forgive the reasons that you became an abuser, and then start humbling yourself. Start, not having to be right all the time. Just, like I like to say, I told my sister earlier today, two guys could get in a fist fight in a parking lot, and a husband and wife witness it, and the husband says, "Damn, that guy must have pissed him off. He got his ass whooped." And the wife sees the exact same fight and says, "Why do guys have to act that way? Like, why can't they just talk about whatever's bothering them and figure it out?" It's just they both watch the same fight. One of them sees it one way, like, man, that guy must have got pissed. The other guy must have done something wrong. He got his ass whooped. Lesson learned, or he deserved it, or whatever, But the wife, seeing the same fight could be like, man, that doesn't make any sense to me. We're not Neanderthals. Why can't they just talk it out, figure it out? Because maybe one of them didn't mean what, whatever it is. And so just keep that in mind when you're having troubles with anger and things. Like, maybe the wife just sees things different. Maybe your partner sees things different than you, and neither one of them are wrong. It's just, a man and a woman, and two different upbringings, and all that stuff. And just don't always feel like you have to be right, because the way she sees it, the way she views the world, the way she views your relationship, anything that comes up might be totally different than yours, and it's absolutely okay. It's not a competition to see who's right or wrong. Just, if you talk to her and I see it this way, how do you see it? Or whatever, and then you get to know her better, she gets to know you better, and there's no right or wrong about it. It's just two people talking and learning each other's, learning a little bit more about each other. All right, until tomorrow night, have a great night. Bye.